Hi, good afternoon. No, good evening. Well, welcome to the conversation with Afolakemi, and today we have Naomi Adedoyin. We've had her on the show before, but yes, I'm so glad to have her again. Right now, yes, it's about the current trend, things that are happening. I won't say it's a trend, but it's something that it's been so evident in our today's conversation. Yeah, as we get modern conversation about families and what's going on within the church and traditions and cultures.
Mhm.
I would say it's peculiar to the African culture, though we know we have domestic abuse and it's also experienced in the Western world. But right now we have Naomi Adedoyin who will be sharing some of her experiences with us. And yes, because of the conversation, what's the role of the church in domestic abuse, like put it that way, or in family conflict? So the question I have for you is first, what is domestic abuse?
Okay. So domestic abuse is any form of abuse that is done or is done from a close relative or someone in your close circle. That's why they use the word domestic. So any form of abuse that is done by someone that is in your close circle. It could be your husband, your ex-husband, your friend, your relative, anybody in a close circle. That's why it's called domestic abuse. So any ill treatment that is from somebody in your close circle. Now, I think some of this might go into domestic violence. So whilst domestic abuse could be any form of abuse, psychological, which includes mental, emotional form of abuse that you get from someone close.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic violence is now the physical form of abuse that you get from somebody in your close circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you know that sometimes people think physical abuse is just when it has to be physical before it is an abuse, especially when it comes to marriage, or even it could be friendship, any form of relationship. It has to be physical, it has to be abuse. Are there some other kinds of abuse that we don't even take cognizance of that are also important in this context?
Yes, there are so many other types of abuse that occur that people think is not abuse, but is abuse. In fact, I'll start with the physical one. So people only think physical is when you've been beaten or you've been slapped or, but physical could also be when your life is threatened. For instance, you were in a car with someone and they started going fast, or they threw you out of the car, or maybe they didn't even throw you out of the car. They just threatened your life by going really fast, telling you they're going to kill both of you, they're going to drive into the river or something. That's a physical abuse. Because they're conditioning your mind, doing that. Then another type of physical abuse could be when somebody tries to eat you, but they don't hit you. They're just preparing you. Like, the person just makes an attempt, they're just just a little attempt, just subtle attempts, like, if I hit you, if I beat you, but they don't do it. But you see, they're programming you gradually. That's also part of physical abuse, even when it has not occurred, but they've been attempts that your life has been threatened. Another type of physical abuse is when somebody strangles you.
Okay.
I'm not now talking about when maybe you are playing. No, I mean they strangled and they're like, oh, I was just trying to see, and they turn it into a very bad thing and you're choking and, then it becomes a threat. It's also another type of physical abuse. Now, the other types of abuse that could occur are emotional.
Okay.
Now, emotional could be neglect, when somebody that is supposed to be there for you abandons you. So like your spouse, for instance, he leaves the house. He doesn't tell you where he's gone. And when you try to ask him, he stonewalls you. He doesn't give you, direct answers, or he doesn't even answer you at all. Or he leaves you in the house for days. You don't know where he's been. You call him, you send him messages, no response. That's also another type of emotional abuse. When somebody controls a relationship is also another type of emotional abuse. That is, they control when there's a communication in the relationship. So usually couples should freely talk to themselves. But when one party decides to control the communication in the relationship, when they talk to you, that's emotional abuse, because they're conditioning you to only when they need you. There's psychological abuse, and that is from like when we say things like they've gaslighted you. So that's when somebody do different things to make you deny your reality.
Mm.
So for instance, they try to make you feel like you've gone crazy when they're the ones, behaving irrationally. So for instance, a fight happens and they tell you, no, that was not what happened. And they trivialize it. And they tell you, no, that's not what happened. I didn't hit you that way. In fact, it was just a tap and I didn't do it deliberately. They're trying to make you deny what has happened, basically. That's gaslighting. Another type of mental abuse is I'll come back to it if I remember something on mental abuse, but that's a very good one for mental abuse. They gaslight you. Then there's financial abuse when they control your finances. Money is power. So when they control your ability to spend, your ability to have access to money, it could be by maybe stopping you from working and they're not providing for you. Not maybe you are working, but they are collecting the money and controlling how it's spent without an agreement from you. That's financial abuse. Or they sort of pour all the responsibility on you. And I'm not talking about a situation whereby maybe one of the couple is out of work and they're just managing. I'm talking about they're both in work, they both have money, but one person had said that no, you take all the responsibility. That was part of financial abuse. There's also sexual abuse. Now, people say, oh, I didn't know married, so they can't be raped. No, they can be raped in marriage because when there's no consent, it's abuse. So if a woman or a man says no, even when you are naked, you should stop. You don't know what day they've had. You don't know what has happened to them. Because at that moment, when a man will try to penetrate, then it will hurt the woman. And that's like almost like them being raped. That's the same sensation they will get is the same person a raped person will get because they are dry, they're not consenting to it, they're not interested in it. So that's another type of sexual abuse, So it's not just the obvious rape that is sexual abuse. Even sexual abuse can also span from deprivation. So they use sex as a tool to control you. So basically, some abusers, they might sleep with you today. Think about it, if you're married to an abuser, the way they can use sex to control you is, like, let's say in January, they slept with you very well, very well. Maybe they don't sleep again with you till June. So they make you long for it. Then sometimes they will try and come to you like they want to sleep with you. Then they don't carry on with it. Yeah? Or they body shame you in the process of it. Then you feel insecure about being naked around the abuser. So then when you start to feel insecure, it looks like you're the one depriving them of sex. So that you see how twisted it is. So that's another type of sexual abuse. Because in actual fact, they're the ones denying you, of your conjugal rights in the marriage. So, I just remembered one, it skipped off my head now. So yes, those are the different types of abuse. It's a lot of, it's a lot, but I think I've tried to break it down into those categories.
Okay. I have a question. When we talk about when you're talking about control of communication, I know this is very, very, this is prevalent in African culture, whereby they tell you, oh, when your husband is back or as the head of the family, you don't talk to him when he's eating. You have to create a particular time when he's so this thing is calm. So there's so many situations and scenarios whereby you see the woman probably has so many things on her mind, but she's unable to speak, especially the very quiet or timid ones, or the ones that have so been indoctrinated about those cultures and traditions, and they're just waiting for the appropriate time. And sometimes the appropriate time never comes, depending on the kind of husband they have. So sometimes they have to please, we want to talk to you,
Whenever you're not free to talk to your significant other or anybody else, when you're in a relationship or friendship or situationship, that you're not free to freely express yourself, then it is toxic. Then one party is definitely abusive. Because you should freely be able to express yourself to your partner, your husband, or your close friend or relative. Be it your dad or your mom, if you find yourself in a situation, like you said, in African, countries, that's control. That's part of childhood trauma that those kind of kids exposed to that environment would endure. That they grow up to be like that also because they think it's the norm. So whenever you're in a situation like that, then that is that controlling, then that's the still abusive.
And also accountability. I was thinking about when it comes to finances, sometimes not all spouses are ready to, especially when it comes to the head of the home as well. Like this head of the home thing can be so like subjective, whereby some people think, oh, it's only when he wants to talk about finances, you have to talk about finances. Like, and sometimes, there's some, I don't know if you've read books or even like scenarios whereby they say like, you can't question him, or you can't question the husband.
Because they are God.
Yeah, so like when you ask questions, like, why are you questioning me? Or don't you trust me? Or so that kind of,
like I said, any situation you find yourself that you're afraid to communicate freely, you are being abused. Whether the other person realizes it or not,
it's a different ballgame.
It's a different thing. But for you, if you find yourself in a situation whereby you can't freely talk, you can't freely express yourself, then it's a toxic situation.
Wow, that is so interesting. My next question will now be, why do women find it difficult to live?
You see, most times when I get this question a lot, and I still talk to women from the foundation that are still in abuse and they're finding it hard to leave. And the truth is that you cannot physically go and remove somebody, just like God cannot physically, uproot you from somewhere. You have to come to that point whereby you decide to physically leave where you are, that is bad for you. And one of the main reasons why people, women especially, can't live an abusive relationship or marriage is 1, low self-esteem. 2, religious belief. 3, the fear of the unknown, e.g., how am I going to take care of the kids? Perhaps maybe is an abusive situation whereby the man was the provider, or the woman is not capable of, maybe there's nobody that is incapable of, being financially stable. But you have to understand that the abuser might have made them think over time that they're not capable of doing these things. So those 3 things I feel are the main factors why women remain in abuse. 1 is low self-esteem, and this is something that it has developed over time. Then 2, religious beliefs. God hates divorce. God hates me. People thinking there's no option to leave a divorce, to leave an abusive marriage because God hates divorce, or because of religious leaders that that probably taught them wrong about divorce. And 3 is the fear of the unknown. They don't know, and the fear of the unknown also includes what will people say, and not knowing how they're going to cope, not knowing what will happen after them, and just being afraid in general. The last abuse I think I forgot to mention that time that I was trying to remember was verbal abuse. Verbal abuse can kill. Words can kill because you can never take them back. If somebody tells you you're ugly every day, you start to feel ugly if you believe them. If you look up to them for validation. If somebody tells you, I don't love you, you start to feel unloved, especially when their actions also portray it. So that was the last form of abuse I forgot to mention.
It's funny that verbal abuse is also something that people suffer from childhood as regards parents, the way parents talk to their kids, which I think affects their self-esteem before they even meet their husbands or partners, as the case may be.
I quite agree.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that, okay, for example, there's this situation or event that just happened as regards the gospel artist that died. And there's so many like assumptions and stories behind it. Obviously, she's dead right now and she can't speak for herself as regards why she left or why she stayed, like why she didn't leave on that and that. But then there are like different stories like coming up saying that the church even wanted her to leave. Her parents knew about it. People wanted her to leave, but she stayed. Is there a reason why she stayed? Because it seems like she had support to leave. And I wouldn't say she must have been, I wouldn't say she lacks money as well. So she had support from the church. she had support from different other people, and there were also some other gospel artists like her, maybe close to her, who are coming out to say, oh, they've experienced one or two things, or they know about it, or they sensed it and all that. So I guess if she had left, she would have received help somehow. And she had a job, she had a career, so to say. So why do you think she stayed?
To be honest, allegedly, if all what they're saying is true, for me, I think one of the reasons she must have stayed just boils down to number 2 reason I gave you. For religious reasons. She doesn't believe in divorce. She has been groomed to think there's no option for divorce in marriage. She's relying on God to come and save her somehow. She doesn't think people are the ones that are going to save her from that situation. She feels it's God that can save her, And to be honest, when people think that way, I'm not sure if they expect God to come physically to carry them. I'm not sure.
I was going to say that, but God was not going to come down.
Yes, but what I found out from talking to some other women in that situation is that they believe the man will change. Yeah, so that's another thing. Actually, I had number 4. One, what's it called? I've forgotten now. What was number 1 I gave you?
As regards reasons, low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem.
Religious beliefs.
The fear of the unknown. And the 4th one, they believe that the man will change. The potential of change, the promise of change, especially because abusers are very good manipulators. Whenever they come back begging, when they see that the victim is already coming out of their clothes, they are very convincing. So there's always that belief of change that the victim holds on to. And you see, it gets stronger each time. The belief of change gets stronger each time, especially if the victim is not getting help with her mental health, So she has low self-esteem. So because imagine if you are confident, if you don't have low self-esteem, you won't even love the abuser to start with. You won't love somebody that is abusing you. You're comfortable in that situation. You won't even need anybody to come and help you. You will leave that situation yourself. So it's really the low self-esteem and the religious reasons for her, and the promise of change. I don't even think it's the fear of the unknown for her, because I believe she had access to resources.
So now we come to one very controversial issue. So something that the church doctrines contributes, to some of this abuse. In your own experience, with your own experience, I would say, how does the church contribute? How do you think that the church actually contributes? Let's start with the negatives.
First of all, pastors are not marriage counselors. Except a pastor has been professionally trained as a marriage counselor, then they can give marital advice. But most pastors leave their office and start to give marital advice. Some of those pastors even have marital problems themselves. And some of them have led a lot of women to their graves. So I think to start with, that is one way the church has failed us. I don't think pastors should be giving marital advice if they're not professional marriage counselors, because there are situations like that of abuse that you need experts to come into the situation. The woman's mental health will have deteriorated. The pastor is not a psychiatrist. He won't, or she won't be able to even pick up that, for instance. It's not by spiritual designing. And I always tell people this mental health thing, is as serious as somebody having cancer in their body. You need treatment, you need help. You can't just keep quiet. Even though one day you're going to lose it totally. I heard of a woman that stabbed her husband to death. Apparently, the man had been eating her, but she had gotten to the brim. Now she's in jail for life. So the kids she was supposed to have protected if she had left will now be with her parents. And in a worst situation in the system. Do you understand what I mean? Because her mental health had deteriorated. She has took that load to now kill the man, when she could have spoken early, sought help, and helped her children. So I think the church really fails in that aspect, to be honest. I don't think it's any, another reason why the church fails, because I was going to say, I don't think it's any pastor's place to tell you to stay or not to stay in your marriage. First of all, I don't think it's anybody's place. And this also boils down to low self-esteem. When you have low self-esteem, you seek validation.
So I was trying
especially
to
the
think of.
way we've grown up.
Mm,
We've been groomed to seek our validations from our religious leaders.
mm,
And some of these religious leaders are abusive themselves, because if they are not, some of them are controlling, So I think that's another, big factor. You seek validation before you make decisions. And the church has failed in that regard. I don't think any pastor should tell any member of their congregation if they should leave or stay in their marriage. I think it should be their decision. Another reason I think the church has failed in that regard is because we know that this issue is becoming more prevalent. I think the church should try and invest in specialist people that deal with this kind of matters and that have spiritual understanding at the same time. Do you understand what I mean?
yeah.
So not just people that have been trained to be marital counselors, but they should have, just like, some work organizations have access to therapists when an employee is stressed or something. So I think churches should have those kind of facilities whereby, when they've counseled someone, they should understand, okay, this is my office, I've counseled you. I think you need to see a specialist because we're not sure if you're depressed or if you're in the right frame of mind to make the best decision for yourself. And they should let them sort the right help. So I think in that regard, there's not enough resources by the church to help people that are dealing with this kind of thing.
I think that just based on your point, that the pastor is not in the best place to actually give the advice. Is it possible that sometimes even when they give the advice, they are biased in their decision making or trying to advise? Because the truth of the matter is, I always say something like sometimes somebody can be a good son and not be a good husband. So in the sense that, so even the parents might look at that child and be like, oh my God, my beautiful son, my loving son. But to the wife, because the role of a son is different from the role of the husband.
Yes.
He might not be giving the affection and the necessary, he might not be doing it right. Or somebody can be a good elder brother and not be somebody can be a good member of a church, dedicated, paying tithes, and not be doing that role the way you're supposed to do it. So you see from a different perspective. Even my friend can be a good friend as a guy, if I have a guy friend, and not be a good husband. So I might just be saying that loving
most
of
the abusers have very good friends and they don't even know they're abusers. And you see, the thing is that abusers are very good at camouflaging to suit the environment. Most of them are charming. And when they're in a workplace, they act accordingly. They only act out of character in a place they have control. Abusers only act out of character in a place they have control. Because it's all about control for them. Why don't they go and start shouting at their bosses? Have you ever thought of it? Why are abusers keeping jobs?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah. Why can't they maybe disrespect their mother or some of them disrespect their mothers? But I'm just saying, you see that most times they are more out of character in a situation whereby they are in control.
Nobody sees them.
Nobody sees them. They like to hide behind the mask. But some of them are so mean that they don't care if somebody sees them. Sure. They will justify what they have to say, what they are doing. And you see, this thing is something that it's been embedded in them since they were young. It's not something they learned as adults. So that's why it seems that they're like a one-way street person. They just see it in that certain way. Do you understand? So that's why if somebody can be your friend and you think, oh my God, this my friend is my best friend. He can never abuse his wife, but he's abusing his wife at home. He doesn't have control in your life, but he has control in the life of his wife. So it's two different. In fact, most of them, it feels like they have two personalities. That's how it feels. Yeah, I'm telling you, a lot of them feels bipolar. It's so confusing for the victim sometimes because you've seen this charming person in the crowd, but at home, this person is a monster. And guess what? Because they gaslight you, unfortunately, their family members, their friends, not deliberately trying to enable them. And there are situations whereby they are enablers. I'm not even talking about that kind of situation. But because they've not seen them in their full-blown monster character, would continue to defend. I know this person cannot. I know, you know, that
You
kind
must
of
have
thing.
done something.
You
That's
must
very
have done something.
done
What did you
something.
do that made him react that way,
That
or
way.
how you react that way?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to talk. So yeah, are there ways by which the church actually positively affects that? Let me say, mitigate some of the abuses, like the effects of the abuse, or ways by which the church help in any way, or did they help you in any way?
I think for me, at some point, a few churches I attended maybe helped me financially when I was trying to get my foot back, but I don't think they really help in regards to the abuse itself, because, like I said, they don't have resources to help you. So yeah, I don't think. I think it's now that people are talking about this thing, and this sort of thing has happened in the gospel world, that maybe churches will start putting measures in place to prevent this sort of thing.
So the next question would be, what can be done?
When you say what can be done to help the abuser or the
victim? To help the victim first. At least the victim needs to live. We don't need them dying.
I think for the victim, you see, if somebody listening to us now, perhaps in that kind of situation, look for a stranger, look for your doctor, tell anybody that you know is safe, that it won't get back to the abuser. Yeah. Don't try not to tell family members, because in them trying to help you, they might get the abuser more worked up and you'll be in more danger. So I think, if you're somebody going to abuse, start by doing research on your exit plan. If you've made up your mind to leave. If you don't want to leave, try and consider separation. But I can guarantee that if you leave without your abuser for 3 to 6 months, your head will start getting better. Your mental health that deteriorated will start improving, and you start making better decisions for yourself. And nobody will have to tell you to leave before you will leave. So I think that's the first thing. Open up, speak up, talk to somebody that you can trust, that can,
Can I say something? Can I interrupt you? So, because the first two things that you have said, talk to somebody, open up. I'm thinking that an abuser, a victim, most times, they're not ready to open up. And sometimes they don't even want to talk about it. Now, is there something in the victim that is attracting the abuser? Is there something in the abuser that attracts the victim? Let me put it that way.
I'm thinking why the person doesn't want to talk. I don't think it's that they don't want to talk. I think it's that they're afraid. And because I've been in that situation before, I can tell you for a fact, it's not because you don't want to talk.
Okay.
It's because you're afraid. Because the few times I spoke up, initially family members will get involved and they'll put me in more trouble because I'm the one going back home with the abuser. So at some point, talking wasn't an option, except maybe you found out, or somehow the situation permits me to talk or something, But something I remember doing when I couldn't talk at all, when I'd not told anybody, was that I started writing on social media. And unfortunately, not everybody could see through my writings. But one particular day when I was serious about taking my life, somebody actually read it and understood what I put there. And person contacted me and we chatted. And that chat really helped me. And I just had a little bit of hope again for the next day. So I would say journalize. You see, when I started journalizing when I was in the abuse, it helped me to have a clear mind. Because don't forget that my mental health had already deteriorated. And that's the case with most people, most victims of abuse, especially when they are still inside. So try and get a notepad, try and hide it, because you would walk up the abuser if they were to find it and read all those things. They would think you're trying to put them in trouble or document it for some other reason. But yes, as much as that documentation will help you eventually at some point in a court case, but it's more for you. Because you see, because abusers gaslight, you start to second guess the things you're doing. I mean, at some point, I couldn't spell cereal. I'll think cereal is serious. Like, it was so confusing. At some point, words were confusing in my head. In fact, at some point, I was forgetting things that I said or not said. So you need to journalize. And you see, journalizing, what it's doing for you is grounding your mind. It's grounding your mind. So so they will try to break you. They won't be able to break you. I think I had about 4 journals by the time I was leaving. I can't even find them. I remember I put them away. But I kept writing down. Then when I was generalizing, I wasn't just writing things he did. I was writing things I expected of him. And I was writing my thinking. So for instance, let's say he slapped me. I'll write, oh, when this happened, when I was going to the kitchen and this was happening, I don't know what I did and he gave me a slap. Like I would express, so it's called expressive writing. It's therapeutic. So you can start doing therapy whilst you're in that abuse. So, and I didn't even know that was what I was doing. It was when I got out of it and I received all this training that I started to realize that I'd been doing therapeutic writing. So I started to write. There was this friend of mine that I would send emails to, and I'll just write things. So I'll just write. But when I'm writing those things, when I'm expressing myself, I also express my thoughts, like expectations of him. I try to read him.
Did you think what did you do? Why did he slap you?
I used to blame myself. So I will write down that did I do this or did I not do this? Or maybe I didn't greet him or I didn't greet him or. So I'll write those things down. I'll write my thought process down, Then I'll write the conclusions of, what happened. Like, okay, so after he slapped me, he just walked away. Like, I'm not sure I understand why he slapped me, but I'm afraid I'll say things like, I'm afraid that he's going to slap me again if I do this. But I don't even know what I did in the first place that he slapped me for. So it's expressive writing. So you're not just journalizing, you are expressing your thought process. So I think that's one thing that can help somebody in an abusive situation. It will help you not to go mad. It will help you gradually to start building a little bit of strength because it helps you to reflect on what has happened and it clears your head. It clears your head. Do you understand? It clears your head because you will have family members, you will have in-laws, you have people, every different voices in your head telling you what to do, what not to do. But when you're journalizing, only you knows what has happened, what is happening. Do you understand? Only you've written down your fears. So you see, your brain will start reflecting and that alone can start empowering you. That was how I started building strength from inside of me. And a lot of people say, oh, you're resilient. No, I built it. I built that strength from inside of me because I will go and write down my thought process and I'll start reflecting and that strength will just start coming. So that's one thing an abusive, a victim can start doing now to help them, come out of that situation.
What else can they do?
Before they can get up to the point of opening up to somebody else or seeking help, they can start doing that today.
Yeah, that's a very good one. So what about the abuser? How can we help the abuser?
So you see, there's something called psychotherapy. That's what can help people that are sociopaths. I mean, sociopaths is almost like, we should just write them off. God forgive me.
I think before you go there, I think one thing I want to talk about is, are there situations whereby the person actually knows what he or she is doing is wrong? Or
there are some situations. So I was going to differentiate it. So there's sociopaths, there's there are psychos or psychopaths, then there are narcissists. They're different things. But they're all similar. They have some similarities in them, but they're very different. Narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, I think. But I think there's one of it that can be corrected, is hereditary or something. But narcissism can be helped. And I think it's psychopaths that can be, I can't remember, one of the psychopaths or sociopaths can be helped by psychotherapy. But you see, they need to come to a realization of that problem themselves. You cannot help a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath realize that there's something wrong with their brain. Do you understand? They need to come to that realization themselves. If not, if they keep being in denial, they will keep abusing you. But when they come to the realization themselves, they themselves can seek help. I've seen people that, felt bad that they actually are like that. And they will, well, not like I know them personally, but I've heard guys say stuff like, I used to do this, but, I stopped doing it when I realized that this was. So you can tell that person might have maybe grown up seeing his father do it. Subconsciously it was in him, or that person has anger problem, because some of them are not narcissists. They don't fall into any of these mental health categories. Maybe they just have anger problems. They have anger management problems. So some of them will go and learn, get anger management help.
How about those
Some of them, that might just be what they need.
Yeah.
But because they're in denial of it, they never get help.
How about those that don't have, it's not like anger management, especially when it comes to emotional abuse, or whereby they just feel like they're right at all times, and they just do something, they just speak to you like you're nothing. Those are the ones that probably use verbal abuse, and they just speak to you like you're nothing, you don't know how to do stuff, this is the way to do it, and this is the way.
Abusers can use any form of abuse. You cannot even categorize. See, if an abuser can use one form of abuse, they can use all the different forms of abuse. That's what people need to know. So that it's not smacking you, it's not eating you physically, it doesn't mean it can't. Once it starts using one form of abuse, it can graduate into the other types of abuse. So we can't say, oh, is this one that says this or does not say this? No. Yeah.
Okay. So they have to come to the realization that they are abusing.
It's very important, yes. They have to be willing to change. They have to come to an acceptance of their wrongdoings. They have to understand that there's a problem with them, and they need to seek help for a significant period of time.
What if they don't?
Then they're in denial. So as a victim,
nobody can help them.
Nobody, even a victim, you can't help a victim that is in denial of a situation. How much more the abuser? A victim that is in denial of a situation, you can't help her or him, whoever the victim is. How much more the abuser?
Yeah, that's the most dangerous part, because I was reading an article of recent, and it's been said that if somebody has refused help, then there's no way you can help that person. So at the end of the day, we might end up losing such a person. But how can we outsiders actually, if you don't journal, this person doesn't journal, we don't even know what's going on. She herself is just like, oh, maybe how can people outside help? Because I'm very sure there are situations like that out there.
If somebody told you they're being abused, go and report anonymously. I know in that moment you think you are letting out a secret that your friend has confided in you. As long as you're not lying about it and your friend confided in you that they're being abused, go and report anonymously. You can tell the police or the doctors or whoever you're reporting to. I'm not saying go and report to family members, though. You need to talk to professionals. Go and report to professionals that will help them out of that situation, because professionals are trained to help these women out of that situation. So they would not go and do something that will endanger the person further.
I get you.
So family members are not equipped to do that. So I'm not saying the person that heard that the person is being abused should now go and call a neighbor or a family member or call their family and start calling convention. No, they will put that person in more danger. But that's even more dangerous, because once the mask of an abuser is off, they're like bombs, they are now more dangerous, because now they don't care, because that they're abusive anyway. Do you understand what I mean? So that one is even worse when they get to that point. So what you want to do, you want to try and protect whoever has told you that they're being abused by calling anonymously professionals that can help the person out of the situation. So that's something, that can be done.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much. As in, I've actually had an enlightened conversation with you.
That's
now,
fun.
The last question is, who is your favorite Bible character and why?
Oh, I'm not a religious person. Don't mind me. My favorite Bible character, I'm Naomi. So can I be biased and say Naomi? But to be honest, I don't have a favorite Bible character, because I would have said Apostle Paul, but I quite disagree with some of his writings and reasonings.
Can you tell me why you disagree before you go on?
Well, I don't want to go into that kind of controversial, won't leave this place. But I quite like the book of John. Okay. I quite like the book of John, but I'm not sure it was John that wrote the entire book of John himself. But I quite like the book of John. So I think I quite like the person of John, because I know he wrote Revelation. But I can't really say I have a favorite character in the Bible, to be honest. If I did, I'll be biased and I'll say Naomi. But I thought some of the things Naomi did was, I won't lie to you, I won't do it. Say that. So I feel like it was a bit foolish. I know a lot of people are always praising her. Oh, Naomi, the mother-in-law of Ruth, please. So no, in fact, scrap it, not Naomi.
Yeah,
Naomi. But maybe John. I think John. I don't know. I like the book of John, but I don't know, Apostle Paul. I was like Apostle Paul, but there's comma.
Okay, so you like, let's take Apostle Paul, because I like Apostle Paul. What
No,
do you like?
no. Don't take Apostle Paul. I don't have a favorite in the Bible.
Okay. What's your favorite Bible verse?
Oh yeah, my favorite Bible verse is that nothing can separate me from the love of God.
Beautiful.
Because I'm someone that I've gone through a lot of condemnation. And I've come to realize that nothing in heaven, on earth, made of man, made of spirit, made of water, made of whatever, can separate me from the love that my Maker has for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we hope to invite you again sometime soon. And
Awesome.
yeah, thank you so much.